I lied. I did put the intake back on, but it needs to come back off. I was contemplating shaving down the primary fuel rail, but it got me thinking, and I remembered I had ordered this full function engineering primary fuel rail a while back, but I had misplaced it and I didn't know where it was. So this is a 6AN fuel rail, same as that one, but this one is a lot less chunky. It already has 6 ORB to -6 AN, and then I'll just pull the 6 to 8 off that one and put it on this one. So the upper needs to come off, the primary needs to come off, or secondary needs to come off, then the primary. While the secondary is off, I'm gonna pull off those pedestals and I'm gonna paint them. The full function fuel rail is on, and I can get in there with a connector on both of these injectors, just barely. As you can see, there's just enough clearance for each one of these injectors to fit. Just barely any room. So now I'm gonna paint these, and it should be bolted down in its final spot. I cleaned these up, and while those are drying, I want to swap over these fittings on my fuel pressure regulator to AN. Oh, and before you guys say anything about why I didn't just use these risers with the top fuel rail, this bottom fuel rail is the same size, and this O-ring is not the right size. So even though this would have taken up that extra space, this O-ring size would not have fit. So this gauge will be replaced with a sensor. This goes to your intake manifold for vacuum. This guy goes to the fuel rail, and then this guy goes return back to the tank. So that is the Tomei small fuel pressure regulator adapted to -6. I would say these risers didn't come out too bad. I mean, they're nice and straight for not having TIG welded in about 2 months. It works, so that's all we need. The fuel rails are done and mounted in place. They should not have to come off or be touched until we're putting lines on and connectors for the whole wiring harness of the car. I still have to go through that wiring harness, simplify everything, and then get the Haltech engine harness onto here. I will have to wire in the crank angle sensor, the TPS and IAC, and then I will have to delete the OMP wiring as well. And just like this, the intake is back on. So this is how the fuel rails look under there. There's a ton of space. I'm gonna have to make some type of bracket for the drive-by cable. And then I'll probably have to make these templates, block off and weld any of these vacuum ports I'm not gonna use, but I need to figure out what stuff I want to run off of this. Also, there is, I think, yeah, so in here, there is a little vacuum port down there that I can have as well. So a lot of stuff to still button up. I mean, there are a ton of vacuum ports on these motors. Down here, that's where all the rat's nest would live, for all your sequential turbos and stuff like that. But since we no longer have that, this is almost what it will look like, except for, you know, the wiring, but there's not really going to be a bunch of vacuum tubes and stuff. So it's mainly going to be like this and very clean. And it'll be in this area, the beautiful home of a 240SX that's going to be driven hard and hopefully not crashed. So I still need to box these off. Once we get the motor and trans in the car, then I can design motor mounts that go to the front of the motor. Then I know how far I can slant the radiator. So the radiator is probably going to mount to the frame rails down in this area by the sway bar. Then it's going to come up and it's going to make the core support. Then the core support, I'll have the quick latches. I'll have some type of retaining system just so that if the quick latches fail, the hood doesn't fly up into my windshield or go flying like hurt. And then we can design an intercooler mount and then bash bar and relocate all of the headlight assembly stuff. I have AN line for this somewhere. I have to find it, it's in a box. I also have AN line for this. These will then run under the car to a MR2 power steering pump. So battery sits there. I'll probably have short wiring straight to the pump. Then I'll also have wiring that will snake over here to 2 relays, which then will power both of the fuel pumps in the radium drop-in cell, or not drop-in cell, but the drop-in hanger setup. Then those will go AN line under the car to the front. The Dash 8 will then go to the Injector Dynamics fuel filter, then that will go to the fuel rails to a Y, then it will come off of there, go to the flex fuel sensor, then to the fuel pressure regulator, then back to the tank, I think, maybe? Yeah, so that's the plan, at least for most of the plumbing goes. Spent the last few days with Kayla working on the Miata, making this bash structure here. We still need to make plates that'll weld to the strut mounts and then make a bash bar and a radiator under support so we can actually jack from that radiator support. But with most of that done already, I have time to actually work on the 240. So I've been pulling a bunch of the wiring out and disconnecting and labeling stuff. So there's nothing in front of the car. I got all the stuff that's underneath the core support out. Disconnected all like the fuse boxes and stuff. All of this is gonna get like pressure washed, everything. Started disconnecting all of the like zip ties and stuff. I'm gonna pull all the wiring that's underneath the dash out that connects to this main harness. Same thing on this side. And then I can start deluming everything, get like the headlights, the headlight motors, blinkers, horns, all the simple stuff that I'll need. And then I'll make a new harness just of those few wires that run to the front, maybe just on one side of the car, maybe on both, but it'll all be tucked up. It's gonna be really low profile, maybe Deutsch connectors on them. Just make it really clean, out of the way. And then all of the engine harness is going to run through the main hole. Might fill up these holes, might just leave them and just patch them for now, just in case I do want to throw AC back in this and figure out how I can run AC with the 13B and then hook up with the evaporator core and then get some custom lines made. But all of the rat's nest that was back there, that's all gone. Same with this stuff over here. All like the boost solenoids and stuff that was everywhere. All of that is either tucked back into the car or it's just removed and I've labeled and put stuff places. I was throwing around the idea of maybe doing tubs. I still might do it depending on how low the car actually goes. I am planning on running some pretty aggressive offset wheels, and with the amount of scrub radius that the car is going to have, I might end up having to either massage this out or have to cut it out and then do something with that. But I still want to retain how that mounts to the inner fender here. So I'll figure that out. Main thing though is clean up the rest of the stuff, get it all pulled out, and then try to throw the motor and trans in. And then I can start dealing with all of the stock wiring. So figuring out which wiring I need to actually keep, which wiring I need to just get the car running, and I need to clean stuff. So let's do it. For those of you that don't know, I've been storing my car in this shop for about 2 years now. Unfortunately, in the time that it was stored here, it was moved around a bunch by multiple people, mainly with a forklift because it's easiest to do that. Now, I think There may have been a mishap with the forklift. I'm not blaming anyone, but this was not here when I parked it. In this box is something I've had since 2016, and we're going to finally unbox it. The box is empty, and that means here's the gas tank. I don't know why I was like really thinking this is going to be like super rusty, but no, it's completely brand new. Still has like all of the paper and tape and stuff, breather tubes and stuff, all the baffling in there. Really nice. Under the car, you can see the gas tank, and you can kind of see the damage the forklift did. I actually pounded out with that 2x4 through the like sending unit hole. So like straight through down that way. I was hitting this area, but it's so crunched up in this area that like I have a bunch of fuel over here, and I sucked out as much as I could over here, but it's like a saddleback almost. Like this is the high point, and I can't get this out. That's why I'm going with the new tank, unfortunately. But yeah, you can see how pinched this is. So I already have this strap off. I have the plastic shielding off as well. And this is the rear wheel. And then the rear splash guard I need to take off because I need to get to the filler neck up there. And then I can pop the filler neck off. There's this line, and then there's another breather line, and then the strap can come off and the whole tank is dropped. So I forgot to film the install because it was kind of labor intensive. So this is the old tank. Nothing's really wrong with it except for the, big gash in it. It doesn't leak, nothing like that. I'll see if I can get it to an auto body shop and if they can put one of their like tack slide hammers. I don't know what it's called, but if they can put one of those on and try to get this, back to more like stock. But here is the new gas tank. Makes my whole car look bad. It's so nice. I still have to get this the shielding right here on from underneath, and then I can put on the inner splash shield, but the filler neck is on. I have to stuff it through that O-ring up there, and then put the wheel on, get it back on the ground. This is kind of sketchy. And then the gas tank install is done. From inside the trunk, you can see the new radium fuel sending unit. I installed this before installing the tank just so that it was a lot easier than trying to fish it through this hole and through the tank itself, because you have to have the fuel level sensor on there. And it's kind of hard to squish it down to get it to fit in there with two pumps. But it's in the cage. It's got the baffling and stuff in there. With this tank, I actually had to cut out the baffling that was in this section because when it was hit underneath, it actually came loose and was stuck on the fuel sending unit, so I couldn't get the fuel sending unit out, and I didn't know why because I didn't know it was hit underneath. So just gonna throw some caps on these, and then I can throw the plate back on for now. I will have to transfer over either that wiring or just the wiring schematic. I'm gonna get a different connector, and then that's gonna go to two relays. They're both gonna share the same switched power, which is going to run to the Haltech ECU. Car is finally on the ground. Gas tank is all the way in. I have to change up my gas door a little bit. I have some spacers in there from when I had the fiberglass over fenders. I got to fill up all these holes and do some body work. There's some weird crease. Yeah, got to pull all that stuff out. Fill up some holes and stuff. But yeah, that's the gas tank. the trans is lifted up into the chassis. I have it secured with that ratchet strap going between each of the basically inner fender mounts right there. I'm still going to set this, you know, even, but this is a good visualization of seeing where the motor is going to sit, and all that I see right now is the bottom points, those and those are basically the bottom of the motor, and that is a problem because if you see this, basically that's where the bottom of the motor sits right here, and that's my steering rack. So I gotta do some measurements, but the behemoth of the transmission is in. I can still set, you know, the trans straight, but it's up on the mount. I can try and modify this mount, but I can't really go up much higher. It's like really tight in places. I might, actually no, I will have to cut the trans tunnel, probably move it up about an inch, just to raise this trans up to be able to fit it in the car up higher. And also, this is the frame rail line right here. And you can see where I already scrape on the trans, pretty heavy. So that'll be good too for ground clearance, just to move the trans up. There's already been a bunch of air hammering in the entire trans tunnel just to try and get this thing to fit with the old engine, but especially with the new engine, with that being the center point of the motor, it's not really gonna fit. On 13Bs, there is a like a drain back right underneath this front cover, and that sticks out probably about an inch at most. So I need at least an inch of clearance under this front cover, so I can at least make an oil pan. And then my pickup tube, I'll be able to cut that and lengthen it so that it picks up more towards the rear. Once I have all of my measurements and stuff, then I know how much to cut the trans tunnel up, but I might just cut the trans tunnel off for now, raise the trans as much as I can for the motor to fit in there, and then take some cardboard, make a template, and then make a piece to weld in. Here's a little better view of how the trans sits in there. I mean, it's really close. So that's why I think only being able to cut it up an inch would make it fit. I don't want to space down the rack because I already scrape on it, just barely. And I don't want to change my steering geometry at all. But it sits pretty far forward, more than I was expecting. I thought it was going to be back a lot further. Back here you can see that bleeder and the banjo fitting for the clutch slave. It's pretty close. If I can, I might cut out some area there, but I don't want to mess with any of my like floorboard stuff too much with the pedals. But once we cut the trans tunnel, move this up a little bit, it's already touching in places. Like you might be saying, oh, you got plenty of space. This is with the trans flat, and I think I'm hitting in the back. But I'll be able to move this up an inch. I think we'll have clearance maybe an inch and a half, and then I'll be able to make the custom pan. Right now I'm not too sure where the oil pickup is going to be, just because of how far forward this trans sits. But from the center of the E-shaft down is about 7 inches. You can see we're at about 5. So I think we need to come up about 2 inches. Also, I don't think the trans is flat. It might be angled up a little bit, so it might be more than that. Also, from the trans forward to the front of the motor is about 17 inches. So front of the motor is going to be somewhere like this. that's all for today. Next episode is probably going to be cutting the trans tunnel, getting all the carpeting and wiring out, getting the seat out, getting the motor in, taking a lot of measurements, making the new trans tunnel, and putting new carpet back in, trying to fit interior pieces maybe. We're gonna figure out how to make an oil pan and everything like that. But for now, that's it. Thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. If you haven't yet, please subscribe, like, share, comment, do all that stuff so we can get this algorithm putting the video out to more people so that everyone can see all this awesome crap. But yeah, that's all. Thank you. Later.